Welcome back to GH Updates, your go-to spot for all the drama, revelations, and explosive secrets from General Hospital. Buckle up, because the episode airing on Monday, June 2nd, 2025, is nothing short of a seismic shakeup in Port Charles. Let's break it all down. General Hospital will reveal exciting news on Friday, June 6th, 2025. First, the courtroom was filled with a heavy silence. The tension soft that it could almost be cut with a knife. The questions from the prosecutor come relentlessly, each one more biting than the last, digging deeper into the complex web of relationships, and then, in a moment of pure vulnerability, Na broke. Her voice, trembling yet resolute, filled the room as she confessed to the truth. The truth that no one had expected to hear. She revealed the affair between herself and Drew, a relationship that had been kept hidden, buried beneath the weight of lies and secrets. The courtroom went still in disbelief. The shock was palpable, the revelation like a thunderclap in the midst of a storm. Everyone, especially Willow, was left reeling from the unexpected mission. Willow's world seemed to crumble around her in an instant. The woman she had trusted most, Nina, was now exposed as someone she could never have imagined. The fact that Drew, the man she had loved and believed in, was entwined in this betrayal was too much to bear. The room seemed tossed-in as the weight of the truth settled in. Willow, overwhelmed by a tidal wave of emotions, could barely hold herself together. Her knees weakened, and she felt as though the ground beneath her might give way. The shock, the hurt, and the sense of betrayal flooded through her, each wave more powerful than the last. As their realizations sunk in, she turned away from Drew, the man she had once held dear. She could no longer look at him the same way. His betrayal cut deeper than anything she could have ever imagined, and she made her decision then and there. She would have no part in this twisted mess any longer. Without hesitation, Willow made her voice heard, her words a sharper book that echoed throughout the courtroom. She rejected Drew and everything he stood for, declaring in uncertain terms that their relationship was over. The hurt and anger in her voice were unmistakable as she condemned him for his role in the deceit. She had loved him, trusted him, but now all that remained was a feeling of disgust. Willow could no longer reconcile the man she thought she knew with. The man who stood before her now. The man who had betrayed her and her family. Drew stood there, paralyzed by the weight of her words. He had expected many things. Anger, perhaps. Confusion, even. Heartbreak. But nothing could have prepared him for the sheer force of Willow's rejection. He had no words left to justify his actions. He knew deep down that he had crossed an irreparable line, and there was nothing he could do to undo Theonage. As he stood there, watching Theonam he once loved turn her back on him, Drew realized that the truth had destroyed everything he had once held dear. Second, Drew stood at the back of the courtroom, his eyes fixed on the judges. The gavel fell, signaling the end of long, bitter custody battle. Thurling was clear Michael Hadwin. The weight of the decision hit Drew like a punch to the gut, knocking the breath out of him. He had fought so hard, convinced that the future he envisioned with Willow and their child was within reach. But now, as Michael's victory was sealed, Drew realized fate for writhing he had worked for was slipping through his fingers. The room seemed to close in on him, and a cold sense of defeat settled deep in Hish. But the custody battle wasn't the only loss Drew was facing. The real sting came from the painful truth that Willow now knew everything. The affair, the betrayal, the lies, the secrets he had kept hidden for so long were now exposed. And Willow's rejection of him was the final blow. It wasn't just the loss of their future together that devastated him. It was the crushing realization that heckled never undo the damage. She had seen him for what he truly was, and there was no coming back from that. Drew's heart was heavy with anger and regret. He wanted to lash out, to scream, but there was no one left to hear him. His anger wasn't just directed at Michael Aravan at the situation. It was aimed at himself, the man who had made the choices that led him to this point. The man who had sacrificed everything, including his relationship with Willow, for a fleeting moment of self-preservation. The weight of his own failures was suffocating. And Drew struggled to reconcile the man he once was with the man he had become. As the courtroom emptied and the finality of the ruling set in, Drew's mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. He was furious at Willow for knowing the truth, for seeing him as a liar and a betrayer. But deep down, he knew he couldn't blame her. He had destroyed their bond with his own hands, and now all that remained was the wreckage of their love, his heart. Ash thought the thought of losing her, but he knew it was his own fault. No amount of regret could change what had already been done. Walking out of the courthouse, Drew felt a hollow emptiness settle in his soul. The future he had imagined with Willow was gone, replaced by the harsh reality of his actions. He knew that no matter how much time passed, Hugh would carry the weight of this loss with him. The anger, the disappointment, and the crushing realization that his betrayal had cost him everything he had ever wanted. Everything he had ever loved. Drew had lost the battle, and in that process, he had lost himself. Third, Cody and Molly had never crossed paths before, but their meeting at Michael and Willow's custody trial marked the beginning of something new next. As the tension in the courtroom simmered down, the two found themselves standing together in that way, exchanging casual words to break the silence. There was an instant connection between them, an ease that neither of them had anticipated as they spoke. The conversation flowed naturally, and what began as small talk soon turned into something more meaningful. They shared their thoughts, then the trial, their lives, and the emotions that seemed to swirl around them both. After a few minutes of conversation, Cody, sensing the growing comfort between them, suggested they grab a bite to eat. Molly, smiling at his invitation, agreed with a hesitation. There was something about Cody that made her feel at ease. Someone who wasn't trapped up in the drama of the courtroom. Someone who understood the wit of the day, but also knew how to lighten the mood. His offer of dinner felt like the perfect escape from the heaviness of the trial. And Molly welcomed the opportunity to unwind with Simone, who seemed genuinely kind. Their dinner together was a pleasant affair, full of laughter and light-hearted conversation. As they ate, Cody and Molly discovered shared interests, common hobbies, similar tastes in music, and even a few mutual friends. The more they talked, the more they found themselves drawn to each other. The chemistry wasn't undeniable, and though it had only been a few hours since they met, it felt like they had known each other much longer. Molly appreciated Cody's genuine nature, his ability to make her feel comfortably even in the midst of such a charged situation. For a moment, she was able to forget about the complications in her life and just enjoy the simple pleasure of good company. As the evening wore on, they realized how much they had in common, and both felt a budding sense of excitement about where this connection might lead. It was clear that their bond had the potential to grow into something more, something that neither of them had expected, but both were willing to explore. By the time dinner came to an end, they exchanged a promise to meet again, each feeling the pull of something new and exciting. For Molly, it was a chance to step out of the shadow of the trial and into a new, unexplored chapter of her life. Cody, for his part, was eager to see where this newfound connection might take him, hoping that it could lead to something meaningful and real. As they said their goodbyes, there was a sense of contentment in the air. Neither of them knew exactly where this relationship would go, but they both left the evening feeling lighter, happier, and with a spark of hope that something beautiful might be unfolding between them. Fourth, Curtis was taken aback when he ran into Jordan. He hadn't expected to see her, especially not working for Sidwell. The encounter was a shock, one that made Curtis question everything he thought he knew about Jordan's current position and loyalties. He had always known her to be fiercely independent and professional, but seeing her in a different role left him momentarily stunned. As they exchanged pleasantries, Curtis couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. It wasn't just the surprise of seeing her working for someone like Sidwell. It weighs timing of it all, especially given the state of his own life in that moment. Curtis decided to open up to Jordan, feeling the need to unload the emotional weight that had been crushing him for months. He had been keeping things bottled up, but the emotional toll of his failing marriage was finally too much to bear. He confessed to Jordan the heartbreaking truth about his relationship with Portia. Their marriage, once filled with love and hope, had fallen apart in ways he never imagined. Portia's actions had left him feeling betrayed and lost. He revealed how she had deceived him. She had been involved in shady dealings at work, including altering Heather's test results and supplying illegal ketamine to frame Drew. These were things Curtis couldn't ignore, and they had shattered his trust in her completely. Jordan listened intently, her expression filled with empathy. She knew Curtis had been struggling for some time, but hearing the full extent of Portia's actions only deepened her understanding of the pain he was experiencing. As Curtis spoke, his voice thick with emotion, Jordan reached out, offering a comforting presence. She could sense how vulnerable he was in that moment, how conflicted he felt about the love he still had for Portia despite everything that had happened. Jordan gently shared Curtis that he had every right to feel angry and betrayed, but she also cautioned him to think carefully before making any rash decisions. She advised him to take a step back and reflect on what was truly best for him, urging him to consider all his options with a clear mind. Curtis nodded, appreciating Jordan's words of wisdom. He wasn't sure what the future held for his marriage, but he knew he couldn't keep living in the turmoil of lies and deceit. Jordan's advice gave him a small sense of clarity amidst the storm. She reminded him that he deserved to find peace even if it meant making difficult choices. Curtis left the conversation feeling a little lighter, but he knew that the path forward would require more reflection and self-discovery. As he walked away, he couldn't help but feel that while the road ahead would be painful, it was the only way he could ever begin to heal from the devastation Portia's betrayal had caused. Finally, Carly stood alone in the dimly lit room, her mind racing as she reflected on the chaos that had unfolded. The argument between Michael and Willow had left an indelible mark, and she could feel the weight of the tension pressing down on her chest. Her protective instincts, honed over years of fighting for her family, flared up with every thought of what had happened. She couldn't understand how things had gotten this far. How a simple desire to protect her son had turned into such an emotional battleground. The rift between Michael and Willow was now a chasm, and it was one Carly could not ignore. She had tried to support Michael through the storm, but everything seemed to slip through her fingers, just as it always did when emotions ran high. The courtroom confrontation had been just tip of the iceberg. The lingering danger and distrust between Michael and Willow had festered, turning the love they once shared into a battleground of accusations, lies, and betrayal. Carly had always seen Willow as an obstacle in Michael's life, someone who could never live up to the ideal mother figure in her eyes. But now, seeing the emotional destruction wrought by the broken relationship, Carly's determination to protect Michael hadn't grown more intense. The situation had become far more complicated than she had imagined, and it made her question if her interference had only deepened the divide between them. The darkness of the situation intensive as Carly reflected on the deep implications. Michael's heart had been torn apart, and his emotional response to the betrayal had made him blind to the consequences of his actions. Carly could see that he was pushing away the people who cared above him most, including herself in his quest to find justice for what he believed had been done to him. The heartbreak of watching him unravel, her eyes gnawed at Carly's resolve. But in her mind, he could never condone Willow's behavior, especially after everything she had done to Michael and dear family. She believed that no matter the emotional toll it took, her son deserved to have his life back on track. As the days wore on, Carly's frustration grew. She had tried to reason with Michael to show him that Heisinger and his hurt were clouding his judgment. But every conversation seemed to end in silence or conflict, and she could see the painful truth. She wasn't helping him. She was pushing him further away. Yet, no matter how much she tried to hold back, Carly couldn't shake the feeling that she was only one fighting for Michael's shakiness, that she was the only one who could steer him back to the right path. The weight of that responsibility was heavy, and yet she could not relinquish it. Meanwhile, the relationship between Jason and Carly had begun to shift. Jason's calm, level-headed demeanor was a stark contrast to Carly's fiery, protective nature. His loyalty to Willow had begun to strain their bond, and Carly felt the chasm between them widen with every passing day. She could sense it that Jason, despite his efforts to support her, was quietly choosing to stand by Willow's side. The realization stung, but Carly refused to let it deter her from what she believed was right. Jason's disapproval only made her feel more isolated, as if no one truly understood the depth of her pain and the urgency she felt to repair the damage before it was too late. In the silent seat followed each encounter, Carly found herself questioning if she had taken the right approach all along. Was doing the right thing, or was her determination to protect Michael slowly destroying everything she held dear? The truth seemed elusive, and the consequences of her actions grew more complicated by the day. The emotional toll on her was taking its toll, and Carly realized that no matter how fiercely she fought for her family, sometimes the hardest battles were Theon's fought within herself. What a whirlwind of emotion, betrayal, and bombshell revelations. Monday's episode promises to change the lives of Port Charles residents forever. Will Michael recover from Sasha's revelation? Will Nina's secrets destroy her credibility? And is this really the end for Curtis and Portia? One thing's for sure, General Hospital is just getting started. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to GH Updates for your daily dose of drama. We'll be right here, bringing you every twist, every turn, and every unforgettable moment. Until next time, stay tuned, Port Charles fans.